Imagine, if you will, pulling out your phone, opening up your navigation app, and instead of typing in a coffee shop or like your friend's address, you type in the word joy.
Right. Or despair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you'd obviously expect the app to just give you an error message, right?
Uh-huh.
Because we are so conditioned to think of emotional or spiritual states as these abstract, formless things floating somewhere in our minds.
Yeah, you can't really put a GPS pin on a feeling.
Right. And you certainly can't, calculate the actual mileage to an afterlife.
No, definitely not. We categorically separate the physical world of coordinates and distances from the metaphysical world of thoughts and spirituality. I mean, one is measured in miles, kilometers, or light years, and the other is measured in completely subjective human experience.
Completely separate.
Right, and for most of modern history, we've just accepted that these two realms simply do not overlap.
But what if someone handed you a map that completely erased that boundary?
Oh, that's the dream, isn't it?
Right. And that is exactly what we are jumping into today for you. We are taking a deep dive into a highly specific, honestly mind-bending text from October 2006. It's written by an author known as Deiform Buddha, and the title asks a question that humanity has debated for millennia, which is, where exactly are heaven and hell?
And we should probably clarify right at the top for you, the listener, the mission of this deep dive today is to explore the intensely specific, almost cosmic architectural mapping that this text lays out.
Yeah, it's incredibly detailed.
It is. We are basically stepping inside the architecture of this author's philosophy to understand how it works. We aren't here to endorse these concepts as objective scientific truth or to take any religious or political stance on them.
No, not at all.
We are strictly here to examine the fascinating structural logic the text presents and just, understand the mechanics of this totally unique worldview.
So yeah, think of us as your tour guides through a very specific, incredibly detailed conceptual universe. The author's primary goal here is to move entirely beyond poetic metaphors and actually plot out the mechanics and literal locations of these realms.
Literal locations.
Yes. So, okay, let's unpack this, because the text starts with the author expressing a really deep, almost visceral frustration with the very cliches we use all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Phrases like, heaven and hell are in your heart, or heaven and hell are just a thought away. The author seems to view these common sayings as like an intellectual cop-out.
Yeah, they find those sayings actively misleading for the speaker and honestly perplexing for the listener, primarily because they blur the line between a fleeting mood and an actual ultimate destination.
Right.
The whole critique is grounded in this demand for literalism. The author asks a very blunt, incredibly practical question, which is, if heaven and hell are truly just a single thought away, why doesn't everyone just manufacture that specific one thought and physically instantly teleport to heaven?
Which is such a grounded, literalist pushback. I mean, it highlights the absurdity of our own metaphors. If it's really just a thought, well, I'm having the thought right now, boom, where's my halo?
Exactly. But it's important to note, the text doesn't completely dismiss the power of the mind.
No, it doesn't.
It acknowledges that those metaphors exist for a reason, right? They hold a degree of truth when applied to our earthly day-to-day interactions. The author actually quotes several profound truths to validate the power of human perspective.
Right, like the idea that form comes from the mind.
Yes, the concept that form arises from the mind. And they acknowledge that a single thought can turn a short distance into 1,000 miles. They even point out the everyday reality that a single kind thought can, avert a fight entirely, while a malicious one can lead to disaster.
Just acknowledging that our internal state heavily dictates our immediate external reality.
Exactly. And the text explores this through the lens of relativity, introducing the idea that heaven and hell can be relative experiences right here on Earth.
Okay, how so?
Well, the author uses a famous Chinese saying, above, there is heaven. Below, there are Suzhou and Hangzhou, which points to the exceptional paradisiacal beauty of those specific places compared to the rest of the world. So it is a geographical relativity.
Oh, I see. Sort of similar to someone saying a specific tropical island is, like heaven on earth. It's comparative based on the physical environment.
Right, exactly. And then the text takes that relativity a step further, moving from physical geography to socioeconomic reality. The author brings in a phrase from the Cultural Revolution, which is, America is heaven for the rich and hell for the poor.
Wow. Okay.
And looking at that strictly neutrally, it's just as an example of human perception, the author is showing how the exact same physical space, governed by the exact same physical laws, can be a paradise for one person and a complete nightmare for another.
And it's entirely dependent on their circumstances, their access to resources, and the resulting mindset. Let me push back on the author's logic for a second, though. Because if we agree that mindset shapes reality, like if putting on rose-tinted glasses literally changes how I experience the world, to the point where one person's heaven is another person's hell in the exact same zip code, why does the author insist that using the heart or thought is overly vague?
That's a fair question.
Right. I mean, if a profound shift in perspective can fundamentally alter my reality, why isn't a state of pure mental clarity enough to define heaven? Why demand a physical location at all?
Well, what's fascinating here is the author's really rigid distinction between a subjective emotional state and a concrete structural reality.
Okay.
To the author, an emotion or a fleeting thought is temporary, it's internal, and ultimately it is bound by your current physical vessel.
Right.
If you close your eyes and imagine a beautiful beach, your neurochemistry might change, your heart rate might drop, you might feel at peace.
Sure, I feel great in that moment.
Right, but you haven't actually changed your coordinates in the universe. You are still sitting in your living room, completely subject to decay, gravity, and time.
Oh, I get it.
The author argues that true heaven and true hell are not just biological moods or temporary psychological respites. They are actual definable spaces with structural integrity and permanence.
I see the distinction. It's like the difference between feeling like a millionaire because you found a $20 bill on the sidewalk and actually having $1 million audited and sitting in a bank account.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. One is a temporary state of mind that changes nothing about your fundamental economic structure, while the other is an objective reality.
Exactly. The author is basically stating that your mind is a really powerful tool for shaping your immediate human experience, but warning you not to confuse a good mood with the literal structural reality of a higher plane of existence. A positive mindset makes human life bearable. It doesn't automatically grant you access to the cosmos.
Which sets up the core question of the text beautifully. Because if heaven isn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling in your chest, and it isn't just a metaphor for a peaceful society, where is it?
Right, where actually is it?
And the author doesn't rely on mystical clouds or invisible dimensions. They break out the cosmic measuring tape.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text lays out actual astronomical coordinates.
Yeah.
It completely replaces that vague heart metaphor with what is essentially an intergalactic travel guide anchoring spiritual realms to specific light-year distances.
It truly functions as a map. It's wild. The author divides heaven into 3 distinct layers or regions, and each one is defined by these staggering distances from Earth.
Okay, lay it out for us.
First, we have the 1,000-year world. According to the text, this is a literal planet located approximately 960 light-years from Earth.
960 light-years. Not 1,000, not some poetic far, far away.
Oh, wait.
960.
Very specific.
The specificity is what is so striking to me. By assigning a hard number, it reads less like a theological treatise and more like a catalog of exoplanets from an observatory.
Yeah, and the next level up compounds that scale. We reach the 10,000-year world. The text describes this as a planet approximately 3,480 light-years away.
Pushing us much deeper into the galactic arc.
Way deeper. And finally, the highest layer is the Elysium world.
Okay.
The text states this encompasses the entire earthly universe, but specifically features the Celestial Islands continent, which is located hundreds of millions of light years away from us.
The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. I mean, to give you some context on just how massive these distances are, if you look up at the night sky, almost every individual star you can clearly see with the naked eye is within a few thousand light years of Earth.
Right.
So that 10,000-year world at 3,480 light years is way out on the fringes of our visible stellar neighborhood and the Celestial Islands continent at hundreds of millions of light years away. I mean, we were talking about realms located in entirely different galaxy clusters. It is a literal astronomical mapping of spirituality.
And by placing these realms at specific light-year distances, the author makes a really profound philosophical statement. They're arguing that these places exist within the physical, or at least spatial, fabric of the universe, yet at a scale and distance completely inaccessible to conventional human travel or biological lifespans.
It's the ultimate quarantine.
Exactly.
Even if we built a spacecraft capable of traveling at the speed of light, which, modern physics tells us is impossible for mass-bearing objects anyway, it would still take 960 years just to reach the front door of the lowest level of heaven. The author provides a map, but simultaneously demonstrates that no physical ship could ever get us there.
Which forces us to rethink the mechanics of travel entirely. But before we explore how one traverses those distances, the text maps the corresponding darker realms, the architecture of punishment.
Yes. So if heaven is defined by these incredibly distant, specific planetary locations across the cosmos, how does the text map out the architecture of hell? Is it deep underground, or is it just another distant planet?
The author introduces a crucial, complex concept here.
Hmm.
The non-material world.
Okay.
Hell, according to the text, belongs entirely to this non-material world. And like heaven, it's divided into three specific layers. The first two are the fire refining layer and the frozen layer.
Okay, so fire and ice. Those are classic, ancient elements of punishment found in almost every culture. But given the astronomical precision the author used for heaven, how do they structurally define these layers of hell?
Get this, the text describes them specifically as unique black holes with special structures.
Oh, wow. I have to say, the physics of that analogy is brilliant.
Isn't it?
If you consider what a black hole actually is in astrophysics, it's a region of spacetime where gravity is so impossibly strong that nothing, not even light, can escape its event horizon. It crushes matter down to an infinitely dense singularity where the laws of physics as we know them just completely break down. Using a black hole as the structural equivalent of a frozen layer or a fire refining layer, it perfectly marries the ancient dread of the underworld with modern cosmology. A black hole is the ultimate inescapable trap in the universe.
It creates such a terrifying synthesis. The crushing gravity of a black hole serves as a structural mechanism for absolute restriction and elemental refinement. But the third layer of hell presented in the text might actually be the most conceptually challenging.
Okay, what is it?
The text calls it the netherworld. And unlike the specific distances of heaven or the localized singularities of black holes, the text claims the netherworld is omnipresent.
Wait, omnipresent meaning everywhere, like woven into the fabric of our own environment.
Yes, and the text offers a startling perspective on this omnipresence. It states that relative to the human world, the plant and animal worlds can be considered forms of hell.
Wait, really? That is a staggering concept. The plant and animal kingdoms are hell.
That's what it says.
To think that, like, an oak tree or a deer in the forest is currently existing in a state of hell requires a total redefinition of what punishment means. Let me try to trace the philosophy behind that.
Go for it.
If hell isn't just about active torture like fire or ice, but is instead defined as a severe restriction of freedom, a state of constant survival, or just a total lack of higher consciousness, then it starts to make sense. Being trapped as a blade of grass unable to move, or a prey animal governed entirely by instinct and fear, is a massive downgrade in agency compared to human existence.
Exactly. The author is leaning heavily on that concept of relativity again. Compared to the freedom, cognitive consciousness, and agency of a human being, the limited deterministic existence of a plant or a lower animal is a severely restricted state.
Yeah.
It is a non-material punishment of limitation. The suffering comes from the absolute lack of freedom to elevate one's thinking or change one's circumstances.
The absolute horror of being unable to change your own nature. Which brings us to the core mechanical problem of this entire text. If heaven is a planet 960 light years away, and hell is either a literal black hole or being trapped in the restricted consciousness of the netherworld, how does a human actually end up in any of these places? We already established you can't build a spaceship to go 960 light years, and you certainly can't fly a ship into a black hole without being spaghettified.
No, definitely not.
So what is the vehicle?
Mm.
How do we traverse this cosmic map?
This raises an important question, and it is where the text brings its entire philosophy together. The crux of the author's argument, the engine for this cosmic travel, relies on something called the non-material structure of life. Capital L-I-F-E.
The non-material structure of life. Let's dig into what that actually means mechanically.
Well, early on, the author dismissed the heart or a fleeting thought as being too vague. The non-material structure of life is what they replace it with. Whether your destination is heaven or hell, the determining factor doesn't lie in your physical organ nor in a temporary emotional thought. The key lies in the permanent architecture of your consciousness.
I'm still trying to grasp the mechanics of that, because consciousness can really easily slip back into sounding like a vague, new age buzzword if we aren't careful. How does the text define it mechanically?
It's actually a very rigid explanation based on resonance.
Resonance.
Yes. It states that each physical or non-material space, whether it's the planet 960 light years away or the crushing gravity of a black hole, has a unique structural frequency. That space corresponds only to a specific structure of life. You can inhabit a space if and only if your life structure resonates at the exact same frequency as that environment.
Oh, I see. It's like tuning a complex radio.
Exactly.
If the thousand-year world is broadcasting its reality on a highly specific celestial FM frequency, and your personal consciousness, your internal receiver, is currently hardwired to an earthly AM frequency, you will never experience that celestial space. It doesn't matter how badly you desire it, or if you have a really good positive thought about hearing the music. You physically and structurally lack the hardware to pick up the signal and exist in that space.
The radio analogy perfectly captures the text's logic. The kind of life structure you possess definitively dictates the space you can inhabit. Your internal frequency dictates your cosmic location. You simply cannot enter a space you do not resonate with. It is an immutable law of this spiritual physics.
But if I am born as a human, right, stuck on this earthly AM radio frequency, how is it mathematically or mechanically possible to upgrade my receiver to catch a signal 3,480 light years away? Does the author believe we are fundamentally trapped by our human structure, or is there a functional mechanism for upgrading the hardware from the inside?
The author absolutely believes an upgrade is possible, but it requires a really rigorous step-by-step chain of transformation.
Okay, what are the steps?
You cannot simply wish for a new location. You must actively change your non-material structure. And at the core of that structure is your consciousness. To alter it, the text demands you follow a specific sequence. Step 1. You must expand your understanding and heighten your awareness.
Which implies that the pursuit of knowledge is the necessary trigger for spiritual evolution. You have to expand the raw data you are capable of processing.
Right. A system cannot process variables it cannot perceive. Once you have expanded your understanding through knowledge, that heightened awareness provides the foundation for step 2, elevating your thinking.
So, if understanding is gathering a wider array of dots, elevated thinking must be the ability to connect those dots in completely novel, higher-level patterns, moving from simple observation to complex synthesis.
Exactly. And without that elevated synthesis, you cannot reach step 3, which is the actual transformation of consciousness.
The actual shift.
Yes, this is the paradigm shift. It is the moment the accumulation of knowledge and elevated thought forces your internal operating system to completely reboot into a higher state of being.
It's a chain reaction. Gathering data forces better thinking. Sustained better thinking forces a total paradigm shift in consciousness.
Which triggers the final mechanical outcome. Step 4. Once your consciousness fundamentally transforms, that cognitive shift actually alters the non-material structure of your life. The software update literally rewrites the hardware.
Wow.
That is what finally turns the dial on the radio to a new frequency.
So what does this all mean? It means the author views spiritual ascension as a cognitive and structural science. You can't bribe a gatekeeper, and you can't just be a generally nice person. You have to undergo a fundamental structural upgrade of the very fabric of your being through relentless intellectual and spiritual labor.
Yeah, and the author is uncompromising regarding the consequences of failing to do this work. They emphasize a hard, inescapable human limitation. If your non-material structure remains unchanged, if you bypass the difficult steps of expanding awareness and transforming your consciousness, you retain your standard human characteristics.
And the human structure resonates strictly with the earthly frequency.
The text states unequivocally, humans cannot enter heaven. To transcend, to bridge the gap to those planets hundreds or millions of light years away, you must shed your human structure and attain the consciousness of a celestial or a Buddha. As long as you maintain the non-material structure of a human, you are bound by the gravity of the human world.
It strips away all the emotional comfort we usually associate with the afterlife. It frames it almost mathematically. If variable A does not equal variable B, then A cannot exist in B's space.
Right.
It takes the subjective morality out of the equation entirely. It's not about being judged by an angry deity who decides if you are good or bad. It's just spiritual physics. If you don't possess the density to float, you sink. If you haven't engineered your frequency to resonate with a thousand-year world, the laws of the universe dictate you stay exactly where you are.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the philosophical journey this text takes us on is remarkable.
It really is.
The author begins by brutally dismissing our comfortable, vague metaphors. The idea that heaven is just a happy sigh and hell is just a bad mood. They strip away that subjectivity to chart a terrifyingly vast, exact cosmos of light years in inescapable black holes. They map out the ultimate macrocosm. But by the end, they collapse all of that vastness back down into the microcosm. The entire architecture of the universe is ultimately navigated by the tiny, invisible gears of our own cognition and learning.
It creates a perfect loop. The vastness of the universe is external, but the navigation controls are entirely internal. The work required is intimate and cognitive, but the resulting destination is objective and cosmic.
This brings us to the final fascinating instruction from the source material. After laying out all this dense architecture, mapping the light years, defining the black holes, and explaining the rigid mechanics of frequency, the author leaves us with a surprisingly quiet, intimate directive for testing our own structural resonance.
Yes, the ending of the text takes a sudden turn. After all the astronomical scale, the author doesn't instruct the reader to go buy a telescope or, start doing complex orbital mechanics. They point you inward to an involuntary state you enter every single night.
The author suggests that to truly understand the locations of heaven and hell, and more importantly, to understand your proximity to them, you need to pay close attention to your dreams. You need to dream more and critically reflect on exactly where the landscape of those dreams is taking you.
The logic there is compelling. In your dreams, your physical body is powered down and asleep. You are no longer bound by your physical location or your waking ego. What you are experiencing in a dream state is the raw, unfiltered broadcast of your current internal frequency.
Exactly. Over time, the text promises, by observing the natural destination of your consciousness when the physical world falls away, you will come to understand the true locations of heaven and hell. Your dreams act as the diagnostic readout of your non-material structure. They show you exactly what frequency your dial is currently turned to.
So tonight, when you close your eyes and drift off, think about the map we explored today. When your internal GPS boots up in the dark without your conscious mind typing in a destination, what frequency are you resonating at? Are your dreams dragging you toward the crushing gravity of a black hole? Or are you catching the faint, distant signal of a world 960 light-years away? It is a profoundly challenging way to look at the landscape of your own mind. We hope you enjoyed exploring the architecture of this incredible conceptual map with us today. Keep questioning, keep expanding your awareness, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.